This UCSD TV program is a presentation of University of California Television for educational and non-commercial use only.
Good morning, and thank you for your interest in nutrition. I think we're more focused these days on supporting a healthy terrain, what we call a terrain, or the environment in which our cells grow. And nutrition is one of the things that can help to keep that terrain supportive of health and not permissive or encouraging of cancer growth. So in Servan Shriver's book, he talks about the things that we can do, and you probably know a lot about these things. One of them is the importance of regular physical activity, and though this is a nutrition talk, I'd like to emphasize that really the two things go together, and it's really important to get enough exercise to keep your muscle mass, protect your muscle mass so it doesn't turn into fat mass. For one thing, when we let our muscles atrophy and we get more fat in our body, we produce more cytokines which are pro-inflammatory, and those seem to make the terrain more permissive. So getting some exercise on a regular basis is important. But the things that I'm going to really emphasize in this short time that we have together are the dietary factors that we think are protective. So just quickly though, before I get into that, I like to encourage people, and you probably heard about this in the last presentation, the importance of breathing. So getting enough exercise, what we call exercising to huffy puffy or getting a little bit breathless, is very helpful, not only in controlling muscle mass, but it's also helpful in getting rid or helping the body get rid of toxins. And again, as we control fat mass, we help to reduce pro-inflammatory cytokine production. So moving into diet, the diet that we think of as the most protective is one that's high in plant foods. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a vegetarian diet, but when you look at your plate, you'd like to see a lot of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and beans on the plate. And then you want to think of your animal protein as kind of being more a condiment than a main ingredient. You know, so think of it maybe like a quarter of the plate, but not ever half the plate. And one of the reasons that we really encourage plant foods is because they have so many protectors in them, which I'll talk about in a minute. In addition to having mostly plant foods, it's important to try to reduce refined carbohydrates. For one thing, we want to keep our blood sugar more normalized. We don't really want to see the blood sugar going up and staying up. When the blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up, and insulin-like growth factors. So keeping a normal blood sugar is helpful. And eating a diet that has enough fiber in it and a little bit of healthy fat that's balanced, and trying to minimize your intake of sugars and refined white flours is one way to help normalize the blood sugar. The diets that are protective also have some fish and seafood in them on a regular basis. We could say 2 to 3 servings a week. We call a serving about 3 ounces, which is like a deck of cards. And when we talk about fish and seafood, it's good to think smaller, lower on the food chain. And those of you who may have heard me talk before or may hear me talk again, I'm always pushing sardines as a really healthy Seafood, it's inexpensive and low on the food chain, and it's very rich in those omega-3 fatty acids, the fish oils that we hear are so helpful and protective. The diets also that seem to be most protective are a little lower in these large land animals. You know, you sometimes hear about, you know, cutting back on red meat. And everything in moderation is fine, but the larger animals like beef, and you could think of pork, that live longer can also kind of concentrate toxins over long periods of time. Small amounts of these are no problem, but we just don't want to be having big hunks of them on our plate. And it's the same for dairy products. Again, you know, animals that live a long time can concentrate toxins. And then the other thing that we are more focused on recently with diet is the correct ratio between the types of fats that we eat. So the fats that come from corn oil and soy and safflower and cottonseed, which if you start reading your food labels are found in a lot of processed foods, these are the kinds of polyunsaturated fats that are considered more pro-inflammatory. And we eat a lot of those when you start reading your food labels. We also feed a lot of those fats to animals when we put them in feedlots. So the ratio between these pro-inflammatory fats and the anti-inflammatory fats, or the, you could say, fish oils, okay, has shifted over time, and we need to try to shift it to a healthier balance. So kind of broadening our concept of food and thinking about food in terms of the protectors that it gives our body. When I first studied nutrition, we were very focused on protein, fat, and carbohydrate and calories, you know, kind of the big picture. And of course, we thought of vitamins and minerals, but I think that what we've really grown to appreciate in the last at least 20 years is how many other protective components there are in the foods that we eat. So moving past these basic nutrients, we've become very focused on what we call phytochemicals, or the protective chemicals that you get in plant foods. And these include the carotenoids, which I'm sure you've heard about. They're the precursors or the raw material from which vitamin A is made. Vitamin A is really important for your immune system to work properly, I mean, let alone your eyes. And it has many other functions, but carotenoids are also powerful antioxidants that are protective of your tissue. And you've heard of flavonoids because of the French paradox and, you know, the reason we all use to have more dark chocolate and red wine. But it turns out that flavonoids actually are widely dispersed in plant foods, and particularly plant foods that have strong, what we call big color, okay? And then there's other compounds, indols, and I always mean to change that. It's isothiocyanates and allyl sulfur. These are just the sulfur compounds that are found in cabbage type family. And in onions and garlic. And these sulfur compounds upregulate detoxification systems in our bodies. So, you know, the plants produce these protectors to protect themselves, and we in turn get protected when we eat them. Zoochemicals are chemicals that are made by animals that are protective. Conjugated linoleic acid is just a long name, but it's something that's actually made in the rumen of cows. And it is also a protective compound. And then the omega-3 fatty acids, fish eat algae and turn it into these marine fats that are protective. And animals like beef cattle used to eat grass that had these types of omega-3s, that then they would make them into these more protective forms and put them into their carcass fat and into their milk. In the last while, at least 20 years or more, we have been switching our animals over to a diet that's more soy and corn-based, and that has affected the fats. And then you've heard about medicinal mushrooms and even culinary mushrooms. It turns out that these beta-glucans that are found in mushrooms actually are considered immune modulators. And so they can, you can enjoy eating them, and they can also be helpful. And then the bacterial chemicals are those that are made by the friendly bacteria. We eat yogurt with live culture and think of that as beneficial. And it's certainly beneficial to keep the gut flora and fauna happy and help with normal digestion and elimination. And there's when we eat fiber, we think of fiber as just helping us to be regular, but some of the fibrous compounds are actually food for the gut flora, and they eat those fibrous compounds, and they in turn make nutrients that keep the gut flora healthy. So, it's a complex system, but it's also wonderful to think of food and how food talks to our cells and helps to keep us healthy. And it can be joyful at the same time. So in the Healthy Eating Program, which those of us working on the third floor here, we push big color and big flavor as a way of you telling which foods to choose to get the most, you could say, bang for your buck, or the most protectors for the given calories that you're eating. So when you think big color, we want purples like in blueberries and red cabbage. We want carrots, we want yams. Everything that's colorful is going to tell you that there's more of those protectors. And then flavorful would include all of the onions, garlic, cabbage family. And when you've eaten, say, arugula, I don't know how many of you shop at farmers markets, but when you get really fresh arugula, it is like so peppery tasting. I don't know if you've noticed that. And that peppery taste is the sulfur compounds, and they actually help to modulate your immune response in a good way. So, think of going for color and flavor. Not only is it food for your eyes, but it's also very health promoting. So you can think of these phytochemicals as being the compounds that give color, taste, smell, and fragrance to the foods that we eat, but they're also very strong in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory factors, and they increase detoxification enzymes in the body. And interestingly enough, a little bit, not only soil quality, but also a little bit of environmental stress actually helps the plant to produce more. So, how have you heard of resveratrol, which is found in red wine? So the wine grape produces more of that when it's attacked by mold. So, a little bit of stressing of plants actually helps them make more of these protectors. And when we eat them, then we get a little bit of benefit or more benefit. So along with thinking of plant protectors, I think it's really important that we make sure we get enough protein to build and repair our tissue and to keep our immune system functioning optimally. And we kind of go both ways on protein, I think. Sometimes we're, not getting enough, and other times I think we're focused on getting way more than we need. So keep in mind that you need somewhere, kind of ballparking it between 50 and 75 grams per day. And I put this slide together just so that you can kind of do a little mental check as you look at your plates through the day. We think of meat, fish, and poultry as being our protein foods, and there's 7 grams in every ounce. So what's an ounce? Like my finger. Okay, if that was a little piece of chicken, that's an ounce. If you looked at the palm of my hand, the palm of most of our hands is about 4 ounces. So 4 times 7 would already be 28. So if you had a piece of meat, for dinner, you'd be halfway there. If you're not doing meat and you're trying to get protein from beans, which we are big advocates of that, you get 7 grams and a half a cup of cooked lentils or garbanzo beans or pinto beans. And then there's other things that are kind of fun, healthy fat sources that actually give you protein. I'm very fond of pumpkin seeds. I don't know if you enjoy those, but you can toast those in a dry skillet and add them for crunch and flavor to a salad. They have healthy fats in them. They're very rich in zinc, and zinc is really good for protein metabolism and our immune system to function properly. So think of that as a healthy fat that has a little protein, okay, and it's good for you. And then the milk products actually give you quite a bit of protein also. But notice those last two lines. We also get protein from grains and we get protein from vegetables. So when you're really eating lots of vegetables, and we think 5 to 9 servings, half-cup servings a day of vegetables and fruits is what we want, then you're going to pick up, if a lot of those are vegetables, you're going to get 2 grams in every half a cup, okay? And it adds up. So don't forget also that you need to get enough calories so you don't burn protein for energy, okay? So they kind of have to go together. And speaking of fat, when I started working in cancer prevention, which was back in 1995, we were very focused on lowering fat, and that was the big thing that we really tried to do to reduce cancer progression. And I think that we've come to understand that a moderate amount of fat is fine, but choosing the types of fats is what's really important. So we talk about healthy fats, and I've listed some of those on the side. Remembering that when we have a diet that's too high in fat, we can get more of the fat-soluble contaminants like pesticides that come up through the food chain. So that's why I'm encouraging, again, lower on the food chain, smaller, okay? Remembering too that we want to be a little careful of fat because it's energy dense, so it can add to weight gain, and that's not a helpful thing. And then again, this ratio between the omega-6s and omega-3s. And a lot of emphasis these days on increasing the marine fats, but I think, and that's fine, but there's also issues of fisheries getting overfished. So I think we have to kind of look at both sides, of that balance, and we have to think maybe we need to be a little more careful of corn, soy, cottonseed, not be doing so much frying and eating of foods that are processed with those, so that we don't have to have quite as much of those fish oils to get ourselves into the right balance. And then we already know to be careful of the hydrogenated fats or the trans fats. I just like to emphasize that we really are what we eat, and the types of fats that we eat become the fats in our cell walls. So when you eat trans or hydrogenated fats, ultimately they get to be incorporated in your body, and things can be affected. The way things move in and out of a cell can be affected to some degree. So, think about that and realize that you're just part of your environment, that it's kind of a continuum. And then in cancer prevention, we also try to be careful of the rancid fats. So that's why you're always being told to minimize deli fats. The rancid fats just add to oxidative burden in the body, and that's a stress. I did give you a slide on how much of these healthy fats, these omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory, you get from seafood. And again, we're talking 3-ounce cooked amounts of fish. And please go right to the sardine lines. Okay, because if we're talking about trying to get about 3,500 milligrams a week, if you just had little tin of sardines for lunch twice a week, you'd make it, okay? And we are continuing in the Healthy Foods Kitchen, which is on this floor, to experiment with fun ways to make sardines more delicious. Okay, capers help, Kalamata olives help, lots of lemon and lime rind help. All of these things help, okay? I'm a big fan of nutrition yeast when you're trying to add some additional healthy B vitamins and some extra protein in. It's a little strong tasting, but when you add it into a smoothie like this, it's just kind of like a really healthy, you could think of it kind of like powdered vitamins, I guess, okay? But you're getting lots of really healthy food here in this smoothie, and I'm all for kind of making our own food from scratch when we can, rather than these canned and bottled drinks. Okay, and here are also, for those of you that are challenged with GI problems that might be associated with chemo, for example, getting some healthy probiotics, always, good kefir or yogurt is good, but there are some recommended forms that are commercially available too, so I gave you a few that are considered good quality. So just to reiterate, the lifestyle recommendations that we encourage are to watch our weight, but more even than weight on the scale, the quality of our weight, so protecting the muscle mass with some good exercise on a regular basis, and choosing a predominantly plant-based diet, trying to make sure that you get 4 to 5 servings of vegetables in each day, a serving being a half a cup, which I think of as sort of like a cupped hand. So 4 of those or 5. And then fruits, some good colorful ones preferably. 2 to 3 servings, go for colorful where you can. Whole grains are always a better choice because they have more fiber and they're less likely to elevate the blood sugar acutely. But in general, we have to be careful of too many grains, okay, but for blood sugar reasons. And then beans and legumes, if you can have some almost every day, it's a wonderful healthy choice. Very high in protein and fiber. They tend to modulate blood sugar also, so they're good for that reason. We encourage you to limit red meat, mostly because it's those large land animals we were talking about. And moderate amounts of fat, choosing the healthier ones, as we talked about. Going easy on alcoholic beverages, just because that's an added taxing to your body's detox system. And limit charcoaled and smoked foods. So I have a couple more useful recommendations. Another great book by Michael Pollan is called In Defense of Food, or he also has a book that's even more fun and short called Food Rules. Have any of you read that one? So among his really practical suggestions, he says shop the perimeter of the supermarket, because that's where all the basic food is. When you do go into the middle where all the processed stuff is, he says try to avoid buying products that have ingredients that are unfamiliar, unpronounceable, or more than 5 in number. In other words, it would be better for our health if we were eating more basic food. And then he says pay more so you eat less. And I kind of think about extra virgin olive oil. I go out and buy like the really good stuff. And not only does it taste good, but you're a little more careful about overdoing the amount you put on your food. He encourages, and I think all of us working in nutrition encourage regular meals, okay, better for our health. He says, don't get your fuel from the same place your car does. Yeah. Eat with friends, because one of the things that David Servin Schreiber talks about is the importance of joy and, sharing food with friends and family. And eating slowly and cooking your own food, but I also love consult your gut, because I have said a lot of things and you hear a lot of things about nutrition, but truly we are each unique, and certain foods, even healthy ones, don't work well for everybody. So, pay attention to how your body reacts, get sensitive to that. So to end with the bottom line, Michael Pollan suggests that you can kind of boil things down to a good diet being eat food as opposed to food products, okay? Not too much, so watch portions, and mostly plants. And then we do need to get enough fluid. So, I'm always encouraging people to drink water. Sometimes you hear 8 cups a day, but make sure you're drinking on a regular basis so your body can clear itself out. Eat slower so that you don't eat as much, but also when you eat slower, you chew more, so you're more likely to actually digest and absorb more of the good stuff. And don't forget to exercise, and then I like to say practice gratitude. So I think it's really nice to sort of sit before each meal. We used to say grace. But if you don't do grace, at least just take a moment to think about what it took to bring that food to you, and also the benefit that food's going to have in protecting your health. And I've given you a list of resources. First of all, with the Healthy Eating Program, you can go to our website and hear, or you can actually see some other YouTube lectures that I've given and find out a lot more about the things that we're doing. We do a lot of research up there on the 3rd floor. We've counseled over 3,500 people over the last 15 years in a variety of clinical trials. I give a monthly lecture called Fighting Cancer with Your Fork, if you'd like to come back or have friends that would like to come back and learn a little bit more. We have cooking classes in the Healing Foods Kitchen every month. In fact, as you walk down the hall on your way out, you're going to notice that they're over there near the Healing Foods Kitchen getting ready for our Mad Hatter's Tea Party, which is our big fundraiser. So they're making paper mache hats, which will then get decorated. We're having a high tea with healthy tea items. And there's actually a croquet match on the soccer field, as in Alice in Wonderland. So we'll see how that goes. And then we do have a book that we sell for $20 called Food for Thought, Healing Foods to Savor, that has some of our favorite recipes in it. I have a few of mine, which I can stick around at the break, but you also can come to our Healing Foods cooking classes, and they always have those for sale, or you can get them in the bookstore at UCSD or through our website. Also want you to know that we have a clinical dietitian here named Allison Liu, and she's available on referral. The phone number's there. And then I also want to tell you of a wonderful nutritionist who actually lives in Utah, but she specializes and has limited her practice to working with people that have brain tumors. And so I just want you to know about her. She's a really wonderful nutritionist who I heard talk recently, and I thought she just did a wonderful job, and she is really dedicated. She's had several family members who have struggled with brain tumors, and she's been doing this for more than 10 years. So I think that she's a good person to know about. And then I think you already had a talk with Steve, but I just wanted to give you some other resources on promoting inner peace, because that is also part of health. And particularly wanted to point you to the last line there. There's a great CD by Karen Drucker called The Heart of Healing, which is just wonderful. It's kind of chanting, repetitive, positive, and very musical, and you might enjoy checking that out on her website and considering getting that. So thank you very much for your attention.